We're here today to talk about the new DXM2 control as well as the plug and play option as part of a whole new line of products. We're going to start out talking about the DXM2 control here, and it sits inside this control box here that we're going to talk a little more about this redesigned control box here shortly. The control itself, the thermostat connection over here is only 4 wires now leading up to the stat. So all you need is 4 wires. You do have the option of conventional thermostat inputs here as well, but you will lose a lot of functionality with the conventional stat versus the communicating stat. All our safeties plug in here. Again, we've got our LT1, LT2, and so forth. We also, our ECM motor, it's communicating between the board and the motor itself. Again, only 4 wires instead of those 16 wires that we had previously. Our hot water generator thermistors plug in here on the board. We also have a whole other series of thermistors here. We're going to have entering water, leaving water, and a leaving air temperature sensor plugged into this terminal strip here. Also part of the plug and play option is a variable speed pump, Grundfos pump. It gets wired in here. There's 3 wires that communicate between the board and the pump. Again, with this product line, we're going to have a 2-stage compressor. The rectifier plugs in here, these 2 blue wires. Now we'll go ahead and we'll move and talk a little more about what inside this box here. But I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the low volt portion of this control box is removable. I had it removed from the main frame here. I will now reinstall it. Obviously there we go. So this is the low volt section here. It hinges. Our high voltage section is tucked away into the corner post of the unit here. Got our compressor contactor, capacitor, as well as the transformer mounted there. Again, kind of tucked away, but yet still very accessible. Some of the other features being integrated into the new product lineup here is the high pressure tap ports here, as well as a low pressure tap port here, easily accessible behind the front access door. We also have the next generation Ultratech scroll compressor being utilized in this whole new lineup, as well as the TXV and the filter dryer have been brought forward in the cabinet very easily to access. Again, part of this, as we talked earlier about this control box here, allows us more real estate inside the box here to make these things more accessible in case of service. Now the plug and play, some of the plug and play features this particular unit in front of us has as well is the variable speed Grundfos pump here. Now that pump has the ability to move the equivalent water against the same feet of head as 2 2699 pumps. We also have a built-in expansion tank with a bleed port here, so again we can get all the air out of that line so we don't want to introduce air into the system. We also have full port 3-way flush valves here, along with our flush port access here right behind the front access panel. Easy to connect our flush card up to. All right, now we're going to talk about, once you've got the unit powered up, what you're going to need to do in order to properly set up the DXM2 control as well as some of the other features that go along with this. So we've got our unit here powered up. Got our, right now you can see here our standard thermostat screen display. Now I'm going to put it in the installer configuration mode. And how you do that is you depress the up and down arrow at the same time. So I'm going to do that, and you got to depress them and hold it for 5 seconds so that it'll go into that installer configuration. As you can see now, it's activating installer menu. And the first line item here, we're going to go through a few of these, is the thermostat configuration. Now, that area there has not changed. in our thermostat lineup. But if you're not familiar with the thermostat lineup, I'm going to go in there so that you know what you've got to set up in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and depress the center button here, and you got the option of single stage or multi-stage. This 036 unit we have here is a multi-stage unit, so we're going to make sure that it's save that option. Then you have the option of multi-fuel, no auxiliary heat, or electric, meaning auxiliary heat. In this case here, we have no auxiliary heat installed on this particular unit. Next, you have the option of programmable, non-programmable, or night setback. We're going to go ahead and just choose non-programmable for now. Now we're back to that main installer setting screen. The next thing we're going to go to is the system configuration. So I arrow down to it and then hit the select button. Now this is where you can make airflow selection if you need to make an adjustment to the airflow. So I'm going to go ahead and just depress that so you can see the screen. Airflow selection here, we have heating stage 1, heating stage 2, emergency heat, auxiliary heat, cooling, dehumidification mode, continuous fan, as well as heat and cool off delay. Now these airflow settings here, I'm going to demonstrate in heating stage 1. You can make an adjustment by hitting the select button there in the center and then hitting the up or down arrow to increase or decrease. So you can see I'm decreasing that by 25 CFM increments. So I'll just move it down to 1,000 CFM and then hit the center button. Now initially it displays what it previously had, and you'll see here in a matter of a couple seconds going to the changed option of that 1,000 CFM. So that's how you make adjustments there in the airflow selection. Now it will have prescribed limits, upper and lower limits, that you can change that airflow within for the particular model that you're working with. So we'll now move out of the airflow selection here. So again, this is no longer done with dip switches. It's done through either the installer configuration tool or the communicating thermostat. Next thing is the option selection here. This is where you can make a change there if you were needed to make an adjustment to the LT2, which again previously was called FP2, as far as either being or with an antifreeze option. Next thing is the unit configuration, what particular model you have. Again, we have an 036 model here. The next option we're going to go to is the blower type. I'm going to scroll down here, and when we hit select, again, our default that's been programmed in here from the factory is an ECM motor, because that's what this particular model has. But if we needed to make a change here for some reason, you'll see the other options that are under this, the PSC single speed, PSC dual speed, or none, or a PSC 2-speed. Then we got our ECM. Again, we're going to select that again because that's what this particular model has. And then the next option we're going to scroll down to is the loop configuration. And this particular model, again, been programmed from the factory. It does have an internal pump installed, but we'll hit select here and show you the other options. Either got a pump or we got that proportional valve. Again, the proportional valve would be utilized either open loop, pump and dump some people call it, or also maybe we've got a couple units or multiple units on a common loop with a common variable speed pump. And again, this valve is going to open and close and adjust based on delta T at the unit, and then that common variable speed pump would be able to ramp up and down based on the amount of units operating at that time. We're going to go back now to the pump here, since that's what this particular model has. Back to pump. Here in a second you'll see that that'll save that option. Now we'll go ahead and back up here. The next thing is the pump configuration. This is where you make your adjustments, if necessary, for your delta T, from your entering to your leaving water temperature selection. So the defaults are in the heating 6 degrees and the cooling 10 degrees, as you see there. If we select the heating there, we can move it up. We can move it down as low as 5 degrees. And again, that will change your flow rate through the unit based on that delta T. That's how that variable speed pump operates. It's constantly looking at that delta T between entering and leaving water temperature. After you make your adjustment there at the delta T, we'll hit select. Now we're going to move back to the main menu here and the installer settings. Next option is accessory configuration. Again, this section here has not changed any in the thermostats. Again, you got the option there of air filter, humidifier, UV lamp, and air cleaner. We got our input dealer information. So again, you can input your dealer information in there so that if a fault ever did occur, it will come up on the stat for the homeowner to call you. Got our humidity configuration here. This is where you would choose again between dehumidification, humidification, both or none. We got the next option here is the temperature algorithm. So again, as the installer or setup, you'd have to make an option adjustment here, whether it be proportional integral, which is the default, or proportional integral with no downstaging, so that again, if it goes into second stage, it's going to finish on that second stage call before shutting down. Or we got differential. The next option there is a new one. Again, nothing you need to necessarily set up right from the beginning, but demand reduction configuration. Gives the option again, if you're in an area where utility companies, you might get a break if you put a demand reduction device in order to maybe limit second stage or auxiliary heat. Gives you that option. Next thing here is service mode. We're going to go ahead and click on it. And the first thing there is manual operation. So again, either from the thermostat or the service tool, you can put it into manual operation here, and you can actually give it the call that you want, and it will stay in that call as long as you're in the installer configuration. It will not, so it's basically in a sense like putting jumpers across the board, so it gives you that option. It's not going to be controlled based on temperature during the manual operating mode. You can also put it into test mode from here, so I'll demonstrate that by scrolling down here, and we'll put that into test mode here. It's now in test mode. Take it back out of test mode. And we'll exit out of the manual mode here. And the next thing is the control diagnostics. Once I click on that, the first screen here actually shows the physical input. Again, this would be if we had a jumpers actually on the board, or if we actually gave it a physical input there at the board. We also have our high pressure switch and our loss of charge switch there, showing that they're both closed, which is again normal operation for those two switches. We'll next hit the side arrow here, the right side arrow, to go to the next screen. And this screen actually gives you our different thermistor, the actual temperatures at those thermistors. Again, LT1, LT2 are the first two. Again, LT1 replaced what we used to call FP1. LT2 replaces what we used to call FP2. Compressor discharge, we got our hot water entering water temperature. We also have a leaving air temperature, which is taken basically at the blower. We have leaving water and entering water for our pump. We have our control voltage. We have the ECM blower RPM, if the blower was running. As you can see, currently it's 0. And our ECM target CFM. Again, what we have it actually set for, what we're trying to obtain. We also have ECM blower static. So we got our static pressure. The next screen, again hitting the next arrow there, the right-hand arrow. The next thing we see under control status is the pump operation. If our unit was operating right now, we'd be seeing the pump speed and then the pump watts, as well as the flow rate in GPM. So again, as you can see with what you can see here on the screen, you get a lot of information from this communicating stat or our setup tool. We'll now back out of this. And then the next thing under the service mode here is the dip switch configuration. In this screen here, we can actually see the position of our dip switches. As you can see there, our UPS is enabled. We can either turn that on or off and so forth. If I make a dip switch adjustment here, you'll see the actual change there on the screen. Again, that's dip switch bank 1. Here's bank 2. And then bank 3. Go ahead and get back out of this here. Back to the main service mode menu. The next thing is fault history. So again, if we had any faults on this system, they would show up here. And then our last option is to clear fault history. So if we had an issue, we resolved it, and we wanted to clear that out of memory, we could clear that there. We'll now back up to our main installer setting mode. And the last thing there is to restore defaults. So again, that is the installer settings. All right, now we're going to demonstrate code 1, which actually is test mode. Whenever the DXM2 board is in test mode, it's going to give you a flash code of 1. And I'm now going to demonstrate from the thermostat here how we can put it into test mode from the stat. From the stat, everything needs to be shut off, including the blower. And now to put it in, then we got to put it in installer configuration by depressing the up and down arrow at the same time and holding it in for 5 seconds. Then we're going to go into the installer configuration, and then we're going to scroll down here to service mode. We're going to hit the select button, and then under manual operation, the very top line item there, we're going to select it. And down, we're going to scroll down here where it says test mode. And then we're going to select it. And about a second later, as you can see now, we put it into test mode. So we can do it right from the stat in that manual operating mode. Now the DXM2 will be flashing a code 1 from the board, indicating again that we're in test mode. Another way to put it into test mode, you can do it right from the DXM2 board by depressing the test button. That will also do it. And that is test mode. All right, we're going to show you another fault condition here. And this is another hard lockout fault. This will be a high pressure fault condition here, a code 2. And the screen that initially comes up again on the thermostat is the service needed. Press any button for more information. Again, upon doing that, you get the phone number for the contractor, brand name, model number, serial number, and then the actual fault condition here, which again is an E2 high pressure fault. We'll continue here to possible causes. And again here, dirty filter in the heating mode, low airflow in the heating mode, low water flow in the cooling mode, overcharged, or possibly a bad pressure switch. Again, that low water flow in the cooling mode, again, we're going to want to verify again our pump is running to the proper flow rate that's needed. We also would have to make sure again by our loop design that again we're flowing enough that we're actually turbulent out in the loop. Low airflow in the heating mode. Again, we're going to want to verify our airflow settings. Again, going back into the installer configuration, verifying where our airflow is set. And then again, we're actually able to attain that. Again, no dirty filter, proper ductwork, and so forth. Bad pressure switch, again, we can check that out and make sure again that that switch upon pressure going down in the system that it actually closes. If it doesn't close, it remains open, we've got a bad switch. All right, we're going to show you another fault condition here again. This is another hard lockout fault. This is a code 3, which is a low pressure switch fault, but that low pressure switch is actually on the high side of the system. So we actually utilize it as a loss of charge switch. And again, the first screen that comes up is the service needed screen here. So we're going to press any button to continue. Again, the standard information, phone number for the contractor, brand name, model number, serial number, and then our actual fault condition here, which again is an E3 low pressure fault. We'll choose that fault. And again, a couple items come up. The first thing is low refrigerant charge or possibly a bad switch. So again, probably the first thing we want to do is once the system obviously is shut down and equalize the pressure, we want to verify if that switch has now closed. Again, we can do that with our voltmeter. And then if that has closed and we're still having an issue, then again we're going to probably need to get out our refrigerant gauges and again verify the charge on this system. All right, we're going to talk about another condition here, another actual lockout condition here. Again, our LT1 fault condition, which is a code 4. Again, the first message again on the stat is service needed. Press any button to continue. And again, all our service information here as far as contractor, brand name, model number, and serial number. And then our actual condition that we've locked out on, which is again in the thermostat here in E4, which is our code 4, low water temp fault. Go ahead and hit the select, and now we'll pick that fault. And again, some of the possible conditions here: low water coil temperature, low water coil temp in the heating mode, low water flow in the heating mode, low refrigerant charge, incorrect LT1 setting, which is again our JW3 jumper on the board. If we've properly put the right amount of antifreeze in our closed loop system and then cut that jumper. Bad LT1 thermistor, again we would have to check that out, measuring the resistance of that thermistor with the temperature that we know that thermistor is sitting at. Low water flow, again, could be a condition where we've got a pump is not set up properly, or delta T in the unit here. Low water temp, again, we could have a condition where we've got a short loop condition, which our entering water temperature is coming back at the low enough level that we're actually locking out where this needs to in order to protect the equipment. We don't have a turbulent flow through the loop. We may need to decrease that delta T so we can drive that pump to a higher flow rate so we maintain that turbulent flow through that loop. Could be a possible cause for this LT1 fault condition. All right, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate here another condition. This time it's going to be a code 5, which is our LT2 sensor. And again, the first message you see at the stat again is service needed. Again, press any button for more information. And again, standard information here as far as model number, brand name, again, your contractor information, serial number. and then the actual condition down here along the bottom, which is an E5 LT2 low air coil temperature condition here. Again, some of the possible causes for this, we'll go ahead and go to the next screen. Here's again some of the causes that actually come up on the screen here. Again, low air coil temperature, again low air temp in the cooling mode, low airflow in the cooling mode. Again, that could all just be something so simple as a clogged filter or something. Low refrigerant charge, again, or we could even possibly have a bad thermistor that would have to be checked out as well. All right, we're going to look at another condition here, which happens to be a code 6, which is our condensate overflow fault. Again, the first message that we see on the stat, again, is the service needed. Pushing the next button here. And again, we got an E6, again, which is again our code 6 for our condensate overflow. And we'll go ahead and click on that. And again, our possible causes here, again, drain line plugged, moisture on the sensor. So again, we're going to want to verify again, number one, that our condensate line is able to drain the condensate away. Double check the pan inside the unit. Again, verify that again that drain is operating. Again, another possible cause, again, you want to make sure that sensor is properly located in its bracket in the drain pan. Again, not making contact, the actual sensor itself not making contact with the drain pan or any other metal object that would cause a grounding out condition, which is again how that sensor indicates that water level in that pan. So again, double check that. It could also even be a skinned wire or something grounding out somewhere else within the cabinet. So check that out. All right, now we've demonstrated a unit performance Sentinel fault, which is a code 8, and what you actually see on the thermostat screen here. And you see the flashing service needed there, indicating the unit performance Sentinel condition. Some of the possible causes for that to happen. In the cooling mode, if LT2 falls at 40 degrees or less, which would also indicate possibly a lack of airflow, possibly a blocked coil or a dirty filter. Also, if in the cooling mode, if LT1 got higher than 125 degrees, which would indicate maybe a lack of water flow or a slowing down of water flow through the coaxial heat exchanger, maybe a pump went out or blockage of some sort. In the heating mode, another possible cause on LT2, if it climbs higher than 125 degrees, also indicating that low water flow condition. Those are some of the possible causes that could give you the service needed and indicating that, again, your unit's not running up to its best performance. It's not locked out, but it's approaching those limits. All right, we're going to go through the next fault here. And again, the first message on the stat that you're going to see is this service needed. Press any button for more information. We're going to go ahead and do that. And we got, again, service needed, phone to contractor, model number and so forth, serial number, and then the actual condition, which here is an E9 swap thermistor. So again, this would indicate that, again, we got our LT1 and our LT2 not in the right location. Maybe we had worked on this unit and maybe possibly had to replace a TXV, and when we reinstalled those thermistors, we got them in the wrong location. Could indicate or could result in this kind of a condition. All right, now we're going to show you another fault here, again that goes into another lockout condition. This is going to be a code 10, which is the ECM blower fault. Again, standard fault menu here on the thermostat, or fault screen I should say. Service needed, press any button to continue. Again, standard information, phone, brand name, model number, serial number. And then there's our bottom, down there at the bottom, the E10 airflow fault. And we'll go ahead and select it. And again, some of the possible causes for this would be the blower wiring, blower failure itself, or blower power. So again, the blower wiring would be our communicating wiring from the DXM2 up to the Emerson Ultratech ECM motor. Blower failure, we might have a component failure such as maybe the module, or the blower power wire. Again, maybe we've somehow lost our power from our contactor all the way up to the blower motor. Would be some of the possible things to obviously check if you ended up with this fault. All right, we're now going to show you another fault condition. And again, this will be another hard lockout fault condition. This is a code 11, which is only on a whole house dehumidification unit. And again, the first screen you see is the service needed. Push any button. And again, the same information comes up: phone, contractor, brand name, model number, serial number. And as you can see down here, it's an E11 low air coil pressure. Again, now in the whole house dehumidification units, we now have a low pressure switch on the coil instead of the freeze stat that we once had before. Possible causes of that tripping would be, again, lack of airflow. Again, not enough air moving across that coil. Possibly the coil did not get properly flushed. Again, we got some air in the coil causing that condition. So those would be some possible causes. All right, we're going to show you another fault condition here. Again, another hard lockout fault. And this happens to be a code 12, which again is only going to happen on a whole house dehumidification unit. And the first screen you'd see on the thermostat again here is the service needed. Again, press any button to continue. Again, the standard information there as far as phone number of the contractor, brand name, model number, and serial number. And then here's our fault here, an E12 low air temperature fault. Now this utilizes our leaving air temperature sensor, and again, if it falls below a low temperature setting here, indicating again that we got a very cold temperature coming across that coil, we're not reheating. And some possible causes of that again would be either a restriction in that airflow, or possibly we've not flushed that reheat coil properly. Again, it must be flushed with a flush cart. It's the only way you're going to get all the air out of that coil. That could cause this condition. Another possible cause would be, possibly that leaving air temperature thermistor would be bad and need to be ohmed out and verified. That'd be something else that could be a possible cause for this condition. All right, one other thing we want to show you, this is not a hard lockout condition, but we want to show you an ECM blower motor configuration error. So to do that, we've got everything shut off on the thermostat. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the installer configuration by depressing the up and down arrow, holding them in for 5 seconds. Now we're into the installer setting menu here. We're going to go down to System Configuration. Again, if somebody had went in and accidentally or mistakenly changed the unit configuration here to a different size unit, we got an 036 model here. If we were to change it to say a 5-ton, an 060 unit, and select it. And here in a second it'll change to the 060. And then we'll just back out of this menu, go back to our standard screen here, and you can see we're flashing the ECM configuration error here at the top of the screen, indicating. Now the unit will run, but what it will do is it'll run at the parameters, the airflow parameter for that larger model. So again, not giving you the ideal airflow, obviously, for this particular model if that was to occur. All right, we've just now went through all the features and setup procedures for our new DXM2 control, as well as the plug-and-play features, as well as we ran through all the fault codes and some of the possible causes of those fault codes.